Yeah, and you mentioned strategy there. So, um, Hauerwas tells us that nonviolence is not optional for us, but nonviolence is also not a strategy, he says. You want to clarify that?
Yes, for him, nonviolence is not a way to improve the world. It is not a way to end war or um, lessen the likelihood of war. Nonviolence is the fruit of being faithful to the way of Jesus. It will bear fruit, but it can also bear great suffering. There's no guarantee that you will
Hmm.
get your head cut off. It doesn't always work in a worldly point of view, but we are faithful to the way of Christ because this is how God conquers evil. We don't have to be in control. God is in control. We take up arms because we feel it's up to us to make things right, and we take desperate measures to make things right. Our faith is placed in the one who sovereignly um, restores all things through the cross. He doesn't skirt the cross; it's always through the cross of self-sacrificial love. So it's not a strategy. It doesn't mean we can't lend a word of advice or some wisdom to the world to help lessen the cycle of violence. It doesn't mean we ignore the need of the world, but it is not a strategy, and that's not why we follow it. We follow. We don't follow nonviolence. We follow the way of Christ. We follow Christ. Um, and part of that is also rooted in our love of enemy. Uh, while we were yet sinners, God loved us. Um, and so the way to win the enemy or the way to express God's love to the enemy is to actually love the enemy.
Hmm.
Whether they are won by that love or not is up to God, but this is an unconditional um, way to give witness to the love of God.
Yeah, thanks for that. Um, so, and I think thinking back to my own circles and tradition, Anabaptist Mennonite. Um, we've had a sense of a similar emphasis. We said we don't go to war, but we're not naive enough to tell the government that they could have a strategy of peace that would avoid problems or difficulty or whatever. And a couple ways. Well, one way that has come out is we sometimes talk about being apolitical and not being political because we're not using those kinds of strategies of violence or strategies of electoral politics or whatever. Um, but then a quote here from the book, and I'm picking up on this word political. Hauerwas writes, "To worship Jesus is itself a politics that subverts the status quo." Um, so if we don't have strategies and we're not exercising, you know, Jesus' teachings as a strategy, what kind of politics is this?
Yeah, what kind of politics subverts the status quo? Well, Jesus models the politics. Okay, he takes up a towel and washes feet. Um, uh, that's the beginning of God's politics, the way of humility. We don't um, solve our problems with each other, nor do we solve our problems that we confront socially by way of coercion or having power over. It is actually in the humble service of considering the interest of others above our own. Now, that's just the exact opposite of the world's politics. Most people are voting according to their perceived self-interest and what party will serve their self-interest. Now, some do think that serving a particular party will serve the interest of the country, not just their own. But of course, implicit in that is that if it serves the interests of the country, it serves my own. And why that country? Um, Habermas is very critical of any form of Christian nationalism. Our allegiance is to King Jesus and the kingdom of God, which is a transnational rulership of God on earth that not only transcends but includes all peoples. Um, so to worship Jesus is a kind of politics. It's not just a pious set of exercises that are highly personal and removed. It gives expression. Um, Another politics is that there will not be rich nor poor. There's not going to be social stratification. Um, this is quite different than the way the world operates. Um, and to say we worship Jesus means we give our full allegiance to him and to the way in which he reigns in the world. And that will incarnate itself in very public, social, concrete ways. And it will be in contradistinction, and then sometimes it will come into conflict with the governments of man. And that's one, and part of the reason it might come into overt conflict might be whether the state it perceives such a witness as a threat or not.
And it's you refer to it as politics because it is how we live together, what it means to be a community, and how we order our life, how we handle money, all of these things.
Yeah, how we make decisions together, and how we navigate a social life together. That is a kind of politics, but it's not partisan politics. It's not power politics. Um, so it's very different than how we usually use the word politics.